I was on mute. Good morning. Good morning, afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for attending today. You are here to hear about a program entitled Wikipedia and Libraries, Increasing Your Library's Visibility. And I will be saying a few words at the end, but what I'd like to do right now is simply introduce the speakers and give you a quick rundown on what to expect. How do I advance my screen? Down arrow. The down arrow. Okay. Moving right along. The program today is hosted by the OCLC's Research Office, but also it's part of OCLC's Collective Insight program series. Collective Insight, which we started a year ago, is a series of programs created to frame and facilitate conversations across the academic community around important topics that are relevant to libraries today. And through this series, we seek to offer thought-provoking meetings and discussions around specific topics of interest. This program was developed and presented last summer at ALA Midwinter, but it got such great feedback that we have an opportunity to present it again. The speakers are Jake Orlich, who comes to us from Wikipedia, who will be giving us some background on Wikipedia and talk about this project in particular and his connection to libraries. My colleague Marilee Prophet will be giving us some important background on libraries and Wikipedia. Lily Tordoanova and her colleague Yo-Hong Lin will be talking to us from Rutgers University. Lily is the undergraduate experience librarian, and Yo-Hong Lin has a much longer title, metadata librarian for continuing resources, scholarship, and data. The next speaker will be Kenning Orlich, who's the Dean of the Library at Montana State University, and as I said, I will follow up with a brief summary of a specific project that OCLC has been working on with other partners, but Wikipedia being a key one. So I'm going to turn, Melissa, would you please turn it over to Marilee? You've done so, and advance the screen. Thank you. Oh.
Thanks, guys. I'm very happy to be with you here today, and I'm going to make an argument that I hope won't take too much for you guys to buy into, which is that I think that making very active moves to increase the visibility of libraries and library resources on the open web is incredibly important. As my colleague Lorcan Dempsey has often said, discovery happens elsewhere. And that elsewhere is increasingly search engines and then the websites that are highly ranked by search engines. And Wikipedia is one of those, and a very important one of those, as I will argue. Wikipedia is very highly ranked, number 5 or number 6 in global traffic versus via Alexa, number 4 or 5 in terms of U.S. traffic. It is a starting point for research, as we have found. My colleague Lynn Conway has done research with colleagues and has uncovered this thing that she calls the Learning Black Market and GWR, which stands for Google Wikipedia References. So what happens is a student in search of a decent citation for a paper will Google a topic on Wikipedia, on Google, wind up at Wikipedia because it is the first or second website that they will encounter, and then go straight to the citations section of that article and copy and paste the citation directly into their paper. One university librarian told me that the students don't even bother to change the font quite frequently. So we see this in action. What we'd like to do is reposition both Wikipedia and library resources so that Wikipedia becomes a jumping point off for students and for others who are seeking information so that they can more easily access the information that they're entitled to through their library, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So our students our faculty are already on Wikipedia. How do we get them more easily to the library? The other thing that's really interesting for me, particularly given the amount of pushback that there is within the library community on working with Wikipedia, is that Wikipedia and the Wikimedia community is incredibly aligned with the library mission. Their tagline is access to universal knowledge for free. Well, isn't that also our tagline? So I think that we have a mission in common. We also have a real shared appreciation of quality sources, and this I didn't realize until I got more actively involved with the Wikipedia community, is that they really seek to have highly authoritative sources as a reference point for all of their articles. Now, if you're dealing with current and evolving news, what they're citing is newspapers because that's what they have access to. But for them, the pure gold is a scholarly monograph or a peer-reviewed journal article. So I think with research libraries in particular, there's a lot of appreciation for what is a quality source, and also it lines up well with what we have in our collections. The Wikipedia community also shares some challenges with the library community, and one of the things that I realized when I became more involved with the Wikipedia community is that they share a lot of our challenges, and they also appreciate our solutions to them. So I'll just give one small example. For Wikipedians, disambiguation is really important. So if you reach some sort of critical mass, and certainly 8 to 9 million articles is right in that ballpark, disambiguation becomes incredibly important. So Wikipedia articles now utilize something called authority control, which they got from the library community. So here's how Wikipedia does disambiguation for something like John Adams, basically through a page. But when I started talking to the Wikipedia community and said, what would you want from libraries, they said, you guys do name authority control really, really well, and we'd like to take advantage of what you've done. So the Wikipedia community started incorporating the virtual international authority file and other national authority file identifiers into Wikipedia articles, and we could take a look at that at some other point. We've blogged about that project pretty extensively. But so to return to why this is important, library resources are relatively invisible on the open web. So if you look at and that includes Wikipedia. So although Wikipedians would like to link to more authoritative sources, what they wind up linking to are things that are on the open web because they don't have access to the high quality sources that we do. So if you look at this site, WikiRank, which ranks the things that are linked to from within Wikipedia, you'll see that the two things that are linked to that look most like our domain are Google Books and Amazon. Google Books will in some cases take you to full text for things that Google considers to be in the public domain. Amazon will never take you to anything other than a buy it link. So this is how library resources are currently represented in Wikipedia, and we'd like to change that through this program. We'd like to start to find ways to integrate library resources into Wikipedia. But it is quite challenging to deal with the Wikipedia community. It's difficult to collaborate with them. It's difficult to even find them. It's a virtual and distributed community. People are driven by their own particular interests. And there's a real combat of combating what is known as link spam. So institutions who are seen to gaming the system in some way by adding links to their own resources. So I was very happy to meet Jake Orlich a couple of years ago, who was just getting the Wikipedia library off the ground at that point. Jake has done some amazing work, and I think that you will find his presentation both informative and inspiring. So I'd like to turn it over to Jake.
Thank you, Natalie. It's wonderful to be here, and it has been an adventure for me becoming the head of the Wikipedia library with a political science background. And seeing the connection between the library world and the Wikipedia world. I became a Wikipedia editor about 7 years ago, made roughly 35,000 contributions, and along the way picked up a lot of the, as Mary Lee said, the appreciation for what high-quality research means, and sought to bring resources to Wikipedia's community of editors so that they would have the phrase that I use, so that they would be armed to the teeth with high-quality sources. We are deeply aware that our mission of sharing knowledge, that we can only succeed in that to the extent that we have access to the best sources. So I think about the future of libraries and Wikipedia and how their futures are intertwined in a mutually beneficial way that requires collaboration in order for both of us to achieve our goals. As Mary Lee mentioned, Wikipedia does have this inspiring mission of sharing knowledge, and it's entirely aligned with what libraries do. The question is, where in the pipeline does Wikipedia fit, and what is its proper role? And a lot of my outreach, speaking about Wikipedia to librarians, is putting Wikipedia in its proper place, which I'll make an argument for in just a minute. But it's just to emphasize Wikipedia's strength here is perhaps what makes it frustrating to reference professionals. It's its ubiquity. Internationally, 286 language versions of Wikipedia have 30 million articles. These are extremely highly viewed. 8,000 views every second, 500 million views, or unique viewers every month. Just a staggering amount of traffic. And that is Wikipedia's strength. It's not something to be lamented. Wikipedia's greatest strength is the fact that this distributed network of volunteers have made 2 billion edits to create this completely free resource. Here's where the library connection comes in. You know, Wikipedia is only as good as its sources, and libraries indisputably have not only the best sources, but the best experts about those sources. At the same time, Wikipedia has the eyeballs. It is where people go. It is where students and professionals are starting their research. So the fear has been that Wikipedia would be the end point, that the student would Google, find Wikipedia, take it as gospel, maybe grab a reference to rationalize their conclusion, and then stop. But the change in mindset that I think that I have been proposing and trying to see the world from is that this is not an endpoint. It's not even a linear path. It's actually a circle of research and dissemination, where Wikipedia is admittedly the starting point for research, but it's not the endpoint, where students and the public go from Wikipedia deeply into the references, leading them back to libraries and also to archives. And then that those libraries and archives are also feeding information back into Wikipedia in a way that really is a virtuous circle and is continuous. I want to talk about a couple ways that we've started to approach that. So I run an organization called the Wikipedia Library, which is funded by the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the nonprofit that runs Wikipedia. And we have a couple key goals here. As Mary Lee mentioned, as you know, we have this closed access dilemma, and Wikipedia is an open resource, but you know, JSTOR and Elsevier are not necessarily open resources for most of our editors, or in any case. And so the first thing that the library does is we go to publishers and we ask for donations of access so that our top Wikipedia editors can get into a medical article on PubMed or a scientific article on Elsevier or a journal article from JSTOR. And so we set up these partnerships to give Wikipedia editors access to the best quality sources. And then there's a whole host of things that go around that. We want to help our editors do better research. We want to connect them to libraries. We want to lead them back to their local libraries and archives. And in the bigger picture, we want to be a voice cheering on the broader open access movement, because we recognize that that's ultimately where the future of sharing knowledge must go. So these access partnerships are really neat, and we've had a lot of success with them in just the last couple of years. This is a donation model, but it's for mutual benefit. You can imagine a publisher appreciates having their references cited on Wikipedia. And so it's a little bit of a trade-off. It's acknowledged that there's benefit all around here, which is kind of the win-win scenario that I think applies both to the publisher world and the library world, the librarian world. That Wikipedia's best editors are really perfectly placed. They already know how Wikipedia works. They're experienced with writing high-quality content. If they have the sources, they can properly incorporate them into articles. They can link to them, and those links lead to traffic back to the journals, which is a huge win for publishers and journals in terms of visibility, and also potentially, although it's certainly not anything that we promised, increasing subscriptions back to their sites. But really the key is it's sharing of knowledge on our end and visibility of the publishers on Wikipedia. That's kind of the basic formula. And we've done really well so far. So our partners in just the past 2 years included Oxford University Press and the British Medical Journal, JSTOR, British Newspaper Archives. We recently just signed a very nice large collaboration with De Gruyter and also with Elsevier. So we've started to see a huge shift in the attitudes of publishers that they are at least willing to experiment with having their content be freely shared with people in a position to distribute it and disseminate it. So not sharing it with everyone for free, but sharing it with the people who can summarize the content, link to it from a portal like Wikipedia, and then lead the public back to those publishers. So that is another model of the kind of the circle of research and dissemination. And we've done this at a scale that our individual editing community simply could not have afforded to purchase on their own. Over $1 million worth of donations. We're actually now up to 19 partners, and we're continuing to grow. Like any library subscription program does, there's an immense number of potential targets, but we try to focus on high-quality ones that really serve either a broad or a specific niche amongst our editing community. And I like to think about what it would mean for Wikipedia and for the public if every publisher donated free access to 1,000 of the most active Wikipedia editors in that subject area. How deeply that would improve the velocity of the flow of information around that circle. Another program that we started, another way to get our editors access, is called the Visiting Scholars Program. And we kind of had this dream like, well, wouldn't it be really neat if Stanford would give us 5,000 seats in their library subscription, just kind of add on 5,000 Wikipedia editors to their existing, student body and give us gratis access. So that turned out to be a little bit, as you can imagine, of a licensing nightmare. But there is a tradition in the academic world of a much narrower and fully kind of already established system of designating 1 or 2 people as research affiliates or visiting scholars. So we started a program where we take a top Wikipedia editor and we pair them up with a university. The university doesn't pay them, but they give them that research access, full access to their online catalog. And then the only expectation is the editor uses the online resources to develop Wikipedia articles. Sometimes they focus a little bit on a subject area that's specific to the collections or highlights of the collections, but in general, it's a simple trade-off in an unpaid remote position where access is traded for the agreement to write content based on that. And we started a pilot this over the last several months with 4 universities who took on 5 visiting scholars. And we'll hear some more details from some of our participants in this, but Rutgers, Montana State, George Mason, and UC Riverside. And the agreement that they set up in this pilot program was that they would give 1 editor who we helped select full access, and then over the course of the year, they would improve 25 articles. And there was a little bit of negotiation between discussion between the Wikipedia editor and the university to figure out what is a good subject area that they would like to see content exposed in. And that could have been as narrow as writing about the founders of the university, or it could have been as broad as writing about the environment and natural history. And so there's a lot of flexibility for the university to come up with a scope that they were comfortable with and that the editor was still interested and excited about. And I asked the same big picture kind of question, what would it mean that every library or research institution or academic department had one Wikipedia as a research affiliate or visiting scholar on their staff who could access their collections and use them to build the encyclopedia. The third program that I want to talk about is really how I got here with OCLC. The OCLC has been such a phenomenal just locus of networking and outreach and appreciation of the challenges that libraries have, and has been a tremendous partner. And they also came up with a really, really neat API that we have been working on leveraging. So it's called the KnowledgeBased API, and it knows what institutions have which holdings. And this allows us to do some pretty neat tool development. So the idea and the gold standard that we've been working for is how great would it be if when a student at a university went to a Wikipedia article and they saw the references at the bottom of the article, if there was a link next to the reference that went directly to the full text source, kind of an on Wikipedia link resolver, so that it would take your IP address, send the IP address along with the citation you were looking for to OCLC's API, and then live, right on the page as it loads, it would send you back that link to the full text source. But it can even do more than that because the API has fallbacks. Maybe the institution that your IP is affiliated with doesn't have access to this source, but maybe OCLC knows about it in an open access archive or repository, and in which case they can return that link. And even then, if that falls back and fails to get you what you want, there's the possibility of linking to a WorldCat page. And so the idea is to get readers of Wikipedia as close as possible to the full text. We're trying to push them as far as we can, around that circle, getting back to the sources, getting back to the libraries and the institutions. So far, we have an alpha version of this tool. We're very close to releasing it in beta, in which case everyone will be able to try it and see how it works. And we really are looking forward to folks at institutions testing it because it's designed to work optimally for people who are affiliated with an institution. And it will load live right on Wikipedia next to all of the references and just provide that added functionality of getting closer to the full text in a seamless way. And yeah, this is my dream, is that every Wikipedia article has a link to the full text right next to it, right next to the references, or as close as possible. We have a lot of other projects. I don't have time to get into them, but suffice to say that we're building other technologies that help expose collections, that connect Wikipedia readers back to reference desks at specific libraries, that help us remix metadata or EAD information into frameworks of sub-articles, and also do a lot of tracking of the kind of impact that we're having. How many links are we exposing on Wikipedia? And how much traffic is being driven from Wikipedia back to libraries. Just one neat little tool you could check out. We wanted to surface content from archives on Wikipedia, so myself and a coder named Eric Fedeplis met up at a LibHack at ALA Midwinter in Philadelphia, and we coded this really nifty Chrome extension called Wikipedia DTLA. And as you can see on the bottom of the slide, it loads live articles related to the Wikipedia content right at the top of the page, text and images. And this is just a kind of neat example of a way to integrate and kind of, again, connect that circle. Archives can lead to Wikipedia, and Wikipedia can lead back to archives. I'm going to just flip through this a little bit, but lastly, just touch on that. We're working on a variety of ways to give Wikipedia editors access to sources and also help them share sources. So we have a neat community portal called the Resource Exchange, where Wikipedia editors will share on a non-commercial educational basis, share a copy of an article that another editor requests for the specific purpose of improving the encyclopedia. And a question that we wondered about in a conceptual, hypothetical way is, what if we could do this more broadly? What if we could do this in the broader research community or in the broader medical community, where when someone needed a source, there was someone who was available to provide a fair use full text copy. And so we're thinking about those kinds of questions, although there are obviously lots of copyright hurdles that need to be overcome. Another thing that we're doing, and this is where I'll wrap up, is we're trying to signal the open access level of sources. So we want readers on Wikipedia to know not just where the information came from, the citation, but to know something about the OA-ness of that source. You know, is it free to read? Is it free to reuse? What do we know about its licensing status? And this is important for us because although Wikipedia is free itself, we don't explicitly prefer open access sources as citations. We want the best sources. But we also want our readers to be fully informed, and we want to raise awareness of the fact that sources differ both in their authoritativeness and also in their level of access. And so we're working on a program to tag all open access references on Wikipedia with the details of the OA-ness. And that we think is a really neat initiative, and we want every Wikipedia reference to have that kind of information. I talked a little bit about DTLA. I'm going to just skip over this notion that archives, in addition to libraries, don't want to leave them out. Archives should be linking to their collections on relevant Wikipedia articles. Everyone involved in the reference world should be finding a way to tap into this circle of research and dissemination. Because studies have shown that it simply works. Our publishers see an increase of 300 to 600% in the number of links from Wikipedia back to their sites. And best case scenarios that are not uncommon have seen archives show the same kind of 300, 400, 500, 600% increase in the number of links and the amount of traffic from Wikipedia back to their sites once links have been intelligently incorporated into Wikipedia's content. And my closing thesis here is that Wikipedia and the library reference and archive world are really deeply natural allies. They're not in any way in conflict. Wikipedia is the starting point for research. That's kind of beyond debate at this point, but we want to not be the endpoint. We want to lead readers back to sources at libraries, at archives, so that they can think critically about subjects. And we want libraries and archives to work towards exposing their content on Wikipedia so that the circle of research and dissemination continues to connect and to tighten and to yield the result of sharing knowledge. I'm going to hand it over to our next speaker. I think we're just working on a quick technical transfer.
I think it's going on to Rutgers now, so take it away, Lily.
Hi, everyone. This is Lily Stoyanova, Undergraduate Experience Librarian at Rutgers, and with me is Yohong Lin, my colleague and metadata librarian. And we're here to describe the project that we're working on at Rutgers, and it has many different goals, but we're going to talk about 3 of them. So the first one is to work with OCLC to create a seamless linking of resources from Wikipedia pages to our authenticated Rutgers users. The second is to study how undergraduates actually use resources linked in Wikipedia bibliographies. And the third one is to talk about the workflow between Wikipedia editors and Rutgers librarians and the process of enhancing the content and the quality of articles in Wikipedia using some of the unique resources that Rutgers has. So I'm going to be talking about the first part, which is the undergraduate research study, and then I'm going to hand it over to Yohong, who is going to discuss the workflow between Wikipedia editors and librarians and our future steps in terms of what we want to do with this and how we want to approach some of the faculty and work with our curriculum at Rutgers. Before I begin, though, I do want to acknowledge that this project is very much directed by, and the vision of this project is our Associate University Librarian for Technical Services, Grace Agnews. So I really want to acknowledge her support in this and her vision here. So let me talk a little bit about this undergraduate research study. So as I mentioned, I am an undergraduate experience librarian. So for me, what's interesting about Wikipedia is this universality among undergraduate students. We know that it's very, very important to them. As we've already mentioned in this webinar, it's pretty much universally the first place that they start their research process. What I think that we don't know very much about is what happens after they read this Wikipedia page. So one of the things that we want to explore with this, and that's kind of depicted in this graphic, is at what point of the research process of undergraduates does the library and the library resources factor in? So for example, do they follow bibliographies from Wikipedia to go to the library resources, or do they not? So that's a very important goal for us with this. So we did this small-scale study. We had 30 participants, undergraduates, freshmen students. They were all in our Writing Across the Curriculum program. And so we could make the assumption that these students have very little, if any, prior experience doing academic scholarly research. So we administered a controlled survey in one of our computer labs, and we gave them a pre and a post test just to make sure, again, that they are, in fact, very new to the research process. What we did essentially is we gave them a hypothetical assignment, something that they might actually, that is very similar to something that they would be doing in the English class, which is to have a research topic and to conduct a literature review. So we started them off from a Wikipedia page, and then we asked them to tell us what they would do next, essentially. And throughout this process, we also asked the students to use a rubric to evaluate the nature of the sources that they're choosing to use to conduct this hypothetical assignment. So here's what we found out. First, almost exclusively after reading the Wikipedia page, undergraduates, the students in our survey, chose to go back to Wikipedia or to go to Google to find more information. This part of the finding is actually kind of complex because it's very difficult in some ways to extricate Wikipedia from Google. As we know, one of the first things that happens when you do a Google search is that you find a Wikipedia page, right? So so it's very difficult to find out what the actual preference of students is, or if there's any difference in what the difference is. We also discovered through our open-ended questions and comments in our survey that students have very much been discouraged by their instructors and their faculty to use Wikipedia, but that doesn't stop them. They still use it anyway. And this discouragement we want to go back to when we talk about our future steps with this project, where we're actually going to be surveying some of our faculty about their own perceptions about Wikipedia and trying to understand if there's a connection, if essentially faculty really understands how information is produced on Wikipedia, and if that has something to do with the fact that they're discouraging their students. So one of the biggest findings of this study was the fact that, in general, students do not use bibliographies in Wikipedia. This is not just, it should be noted, this is not just in Wikipedia, but really in general. So students who have very little experience with scholarly research in its own are not likely to look at the bibliography of a source. So that has some important implications for us. At the point where we actually force students to consider the bibliography of a Wikipedia page and to select a citation from it that they would like to follow up on, almost all of them chose the first citation to appear in the page. And so that's kind of problematic in a sense because students are assuming here that the first citation is the best one, likely to lead to the best, more information. And in fact, it's only the first one because it's appearing first on the Wikipedia page. So there's a lot of confusion there. Students are also, they actually like the part where we asked them to use a rubric tool to actually evaluate some of the sources in Wikipedia. That helped them narrow down and think through the process. But so really the idea behind this study was to provoke some discussions and to think about the next step to this. And so I'm going to hand it over to Yo-Hong now, who will talk about the workflow between Wikipedia editors and librarians at Rutgers.
Thank you, Lily. So, all right. From previous study, we did find out students, they definitely are using Wikipedia no matter whether it has been banned by the instructors or not. So that is the things we're thinking about is if people consider they have doubts regarding quality of the Wikipedia content, if as a scholars we can enrich the content, is that will be able to help students to really access or evaluate this online information. So this is the second phase of our whole project. I will consider this is very excited, but definitely it's a challenging process. Later on, you will find it out why. And so this is our story. At the beginning, when we heard about the Wikipedia, they have the Wikipedia in Residence program. We found this is very interesting and also is a good timing for us to initiate this project because we want to find out whether as a scholar we will be able to tap in a partnership with the Wikipedia editors to enrich the content. And also, hopefully, we will be able to introduce the unique collection in our institutions and help general public to utilize it. So we consider this will be great for us to work with Wikipedia editors, and we start to draft out our theme of the project. That is culture, diversity, and equality, local and global. As soon as we draft out this requirement and post it on the Wikipedia, very soon we recruit 2 Wikipedia editors to work with us. So after that, we are going to engage with our subject librarians to really find out what kind of content is incomplete in Wikipedia or has gaps so we can enrich it. And definitely because our subject librarians not very familiar with Wikipedia editing culture. So Wikipedia editors will help us and also train us how to edit the content in Wikipedia. So as we say, the methodology is we try to identify the Wikipedia contents is we will look at and do a search to find out what articles we will be able to add the value to the articles. And also, this content will be aligned with our institution's strategic planning and support our school's curriculums with an interest in delivery and highlight our unique holdings, if possible. So with this kind of mind settings, subject librarian and the Wikipedia editors, we initiate several meetings and we find out what topics we are going to write on. We kind of finalize as 4 areas, and that is related to the jazz history and also immigrant experience in New Jersey and cultural competency in healthcare. So as we mentioned before, our librarian doesn't have a good understanding of Wikipedia editing. So the training is essential. Our Wikipedia editors, they create a sandbox for us to work on our content before we really post it to the Wikipedia site. This really relieves our librarians' burden because we're afraid once we post it, even Wikipedia, they say you will be able to edit, but they have the rights to take your message down. And we want to make sure we follow Wikipedia's rules. So with Wikipedia editors' help, the sandbox really helps for our editors to really work on the content. Meanwhile, in that sandbox, they also provide a lot of basic information for our librarians to follow and write on the good content. So after that, this is how we find out. And again, we did understand this project is not a short term. Once we finish at this moment, we decided we have a long way to go because as Wikipedia, they indicated, they have a 3 core content policies. That is mutual point of view, verifiability, and the no original research. Mutual point of view and no original research sometimes is tough for scholars because once we select a research topic, we want to pass our arguments. So that ends up is when we publish a new content in this project and we got a feedback from the editors is we still have some our own opinions and which probably is not suitable to be used. So that's why at that time our librarians really make a lot of change. And also we find out is the way Wikipedia's editing style is different, especially on the citations. We are so used to our own scholarly citations, but when we put it on the Wikipedia content, if we utilize that kind of coding, it will take a long time for us to work it out. So our editors provide some gadget for us and really help us relieve that kind of burden. And after that, our article published, and we find out there are several comments coming from the outside editors, and they using the talk section to give us the comments, which is similar to what we say peer review. This is something is unique to us, and we find out we don't know how to respond it. And this is definitely something we would like to learn in the future. Meanwhile, Wikipedia's ranking mechanisms and nomination process is another new thing to us. So as I say, our lesson learned not only on the technical side and also have some administration work, which we have no idea. But once we finish this, we are thinking about how can we carry on this kind of learning experience to our colleagues in the university. And that's why we are thinking about if we will be able to bring back to our university. First of all, it will be very interesting for us to understand is what faculty's perceptions. Do they utilize Wikipedia in the public way, or they just using privately? Because sometimes they consider, the content doesn't have a reliable resource. Besides that, what are the reasons stop them to edit the content in Wikipedia? And also, we want to find out is whether the tenure track or tenured faculty makes a difference. If they are tenure track, because the time is so limited, and also they worry about Wikipedia impact is not significant compared with scholarly publications. Therefore, their effort will be less. So all these factors is really led us to think about what we can do in the future. And at this moment, I think this is our story. I'm going to pass on to the next one.
That's right. Time to pass it on to Kenning. Take it away, Kenning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kenning Orlich, and I'm the Dean of the Library at Montana State University. and I'd like to thank OCLC for making this webinar possible. I've been doing research. Let me skip ahead to the right slide here. Is that showing the right slide?
Yep, looks good.
Great. I've been doing research on search engine optimization and semantic web for over 4 years now, mostly with a team from Montana State University and colleagues from OCLC Research. And that research has focused on discovery and use of library websites and digital repositories. And today I want to talk about semantic identity, which is one aspect of that research, and the importance of semantic identity to discovery and use. So I'll start with an example that hit me right in the forehead when I got here 2 years ago, and I'm willing to bet that this affects a lot of your libraries as well. So when I first started my job here in the fall of 2012, I did a search for Montana State University Library in Google, and this is what showed up. A bunch of disassociated links on the left, but that wasn't even what was really so bad about this. What was worse was that what showed up over on the right in what's known as Google's knowledge card or knowledge panel was not the university I was working at, not the flagship university of the Montana State University system, but instead an MSU campus in Billings, Montana. And so it reflected the information from the address of that library in Billings and the phone number, as well as map information and hours and some other information. So I also looked at Google Maps, and same thing. Google Maps thought that Montana State University Library was in Billings and gave an address and a pinpoint on the map for that. So of course, I turned to my research team and said, why is this happening? Where does Google get its information? And it turns out that Google gets its information from a variety of trusted sources, trusted database sources. And chief among those sources is Wikipedia. And not only Wikipedia, but DBpedia, which is the structured metadata database that is drawn from articles and concepts in Wikipedia. Basically, if you don't have a Wikipedia presence, is what I learned, you don't exist to search engines, because you don't exist as a recognized entity or a thing. You exist only as a string of text. Search engines are not very good at inferring meaning, right? And so if they don't know that you exist as an entity or that a concept exists as an entity, then the only thing that they're left with is trying to make some sense of strings of text that people type in and that are available on websites. So there are other influences to Google's knowledge graph. Google Places, which I think is now called Google My Business, Google Plus, Freebase. These are some other trusted resources, but really the big one is Wikipedia and DBpedia. So I went to Wikipedia in 2012 and did a search for Montana State University Library, and sure enough, it said the page, Montana State University Library does not exist. There was no article about our library in Wikipedia. I went to DBpedia. There is the entry for the Montana State University Library, but as you can see, it says no further information is available. The requested entity is unknown. We were undefined. Same thing with Google Places. It said that Montana State University Library was unverified. Nobody had claimed the property. And so I started to ask the question, why? Why is this? Well, if you go to Google and you do a search for the phrase Wikipedia authoritative source, you will come up with dozens of sites that look like this. Sites written by librarians that actively discourage students and other people from using Wikipedia because it's not an authoritative source according to librarians. And what's happened along the way is that not only have we discouraged other people from using Wikipedia unsuccessfully, as you heard the other presenters say, but we ourselves have not engaged in Wikipedia the way we should, and as a result, we've fallen by the wayside. We have not done a good job of defining ourselves, our profession, our libraries, and our products and services in Wikipedia. So here's one of my favorites. This comes from a blog where a librarian said, rather proudly, when no or minimal results are returned on a Google results page, users and information professionals all too often give up. I personally see it as a victory. A valid search in Google with no results illustrates your search is so niche that you have beaten Google. The search has nothing for you. So I think that's it's indicative of a mentality that has gotten us into a rather bad place, because if Google thinks that you don't exist, then it's a lot less likely to send users to your websites and to your repositories, and your digital collections and institutional repositories are going to suffer from low use and low visitation. So take this logic out a little bit. What other concepts are poorly defined in Wikipedia? So I'll take two, library and institutional repository, and I'll compare that with a search for NBA teams. So here's the DBpedia entity definition for a library. A library is an organized collection of information resources made accessible to a defined community for reference or borrowing. It provides physical or digital access to material and maybe a physical building or room or virtual space or both. That's it. That's the entire definition of a library in DBpedia currently. And we all know that we're so much more than that. We have so many more products and services than is described there. It's just not a very robust definition for the concept of a library. If I do a search for institutional repositories in Google, I get a set of results. I get a Wikipedia article about the definition of an institutional repository. I get some articles. I may get the Registry of Open Access Repositories, which is a site compiled manually. I'll compare that to this kind of a search. If I search for NBA teams in Google, I get this very nice display. I get a logo and a title for each of the teams in the NBA. I get a nice set of links on the left, and I get a very well-defined knowledge card on the right. The National Basketball Association is clearly doing something much better than we are in terms of its entities and its concepts. So what's a librarian to do about this? I think one of the important primary things is to stop thinking in terms of text strings. The semantic web is defined by its ability to understand things instead of strings. And that's what establishing a semantic identity and establishing concepts is all about. So how do we do this? Well, we define libraries and library concepts in Wikipedia, but as Yuhong mentioned in his presentation, you have to be very careful about how you do this. You can't just go out, charge out, and create an article in Wikipedia about your library or about a particular collection in your library. It has to be done very carefully and according to the requirements and rules of Wikipedia. The other thing is to engage with the other trusted data sources, like the ones that I mentioned earlier, Google My Business, Google+, and Freebase. And those are just the primary ones. There are certainly other ones. And then finally, we need to start marking up our websites and our digital repositories with the schema.org metadata schema. Schema.org is a metadata schema that the 4 major search engines, Google, Bing, Yahoo, and Yandex, the Russian search engine, have agreed to support. And because they've agreed to support it, it's much more likely to succeed than past attempts. And incidentally, most of the metadata schema that libraries have developed and worked with over the past decades, everything from MARC to EAD to TEI to Dublin Core, they don't work across the web. Search engines, for the most part, have no interest in using them. Google Scholar has gone so far as to say, use Dublin Core only as a last resort because it doesn't work well for bibliographic citations. So marking up our websites with schema.org is much more likely to get us into the game than using some of those library-centric metadata schema. So this is the after now. I've showed you early on in the presentation what our site, what our presence on the web looked like in 2012. Well, we got to work, and now if you go and search for Montana State University Library, you'll find something very different. So first of all, there's a very well-formed, well-written Wikipedia article about the Montana State University Library. And I'm only showing you the first part of it because it's a screenshot, but it goes on much longer than that. And it took us months to write this. It probably took 3 or 4 or more even months to very carefully write this, vet it with the Wikipedia editors, cite the claims that we were making in the bibliography at the bottom of the article. Here is our DBpedia entry. You can see it's a very robust entry now, whereas before there was simply nothing there. Here's our Freebase entry. Here's our Google Plus entry with an accurate address and phone number and website and accurate hours. So we claimed that property back from MSU Billings. And so this is what we look like now as a result in Google. If you do a search for Montana State University Library, over on the left you get a nice organized set of links complete with an address and a phone number. And over on the right, the knowledge card now shows an accurate representation of the Montana State University Library. So again, this is enormously important because it allows Google to understand that you exist as a trusted and a vetted entity, and that means that it is more likely to rank you higher in search results and to send more users, more traffic your way. So this is our semantic web team at Montana State University, Patrick O'Brien, Jason Clark, and Scott Young, and myself. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny, so much. I absolutely love your presentation. I love all these presentations. I love Kathleen's comment that she is excited about this presentation. This is, of course, not the first time I've heard it, but I continue to be so excited by the opportunities and by this information that I hope you will share with your colleagues. And by the way, speaking of schema.org and linked data, there has been a collected insight presentation on this topic. And if you go to OCLC, you can look up the collected insight series and see some of the other presentations that we gave on big data, because Kenny is right. It's a big deal, and OCLC has been collaborating to try and create an extension of schema.org that will allow library bibliographic data to be appropriately displayed and utilized by the web. So it's a big issue. So I'm Cindy Aden. I work in business development at OCLC. I'm wrapping up this session, and thank you all for staying with us. I think all this information is so important, it's hard to squeeze it in an hour. but there will still be time for questions and comments afterwards. We are scheduled to be here until 12:30. My role is partnerships, and specifically with commercial-facing entities or non-library entities. I have a colleague I work closely with who particularly focuses on library service providers, the Circe, Dynex, Ex Libris players in the field, and I work with other kinds of partnerships. And it was such a joy when I met Jake, because Jake and I, and you can see, he's a big fan of libraries and he understands the value of the collection, of the connection. Jake and I met, and then Marilee and Jake and I all got together, and we've had such a great time trying to envision how to empower libraries and how to bring Wikipedia and libraries closer together. And I wanted to just tell you the one piece that Jake talked about, which is the knowledge-based API. I wanted to be sure that all of you sitting in on this have the tools you need to follow up on this piece of it, should you be interested. So that API is, in fact, a groundbreaking API in that it is designed to be cooperative. It will be accepting input and edits from the participating libraries. I'm on the listserv and I'm watching the progress of this. It is a work in progress, but it is really a great project, and it will be fabulous when it's completely working smoothly. But the idea is that libraries can manage their electronic collections. OCLC is very committed to automating the content supply chain. This is how we talk about it within business development. We're trying to create a real value chain so that libraries can have help in getting their knowledge bases completely populated. Publishers will provide full information about the collections they're selling to libraries, and publishers that work with us and with libraries can also share with us which libraries are subscribing to which collections, with, of course, the library's permission. Elsevier is our latest partnership that is going to be working with us on that end of the automation, but we work with other partners too. So the idea is that the knowledge base is completely populated, that we know exactly what you have, and then this API works optimally to show a user out there on a third-party site. EasyBib is one of the places where it's activated right now, and Wikipedia, as Jake says, is our next big frontier that we've been working hard on getting to work. It will allow a user to find an article, to affiliate themselves with their library, and see the full text. I have an example screenshot here. I wanted this screenshot to be the script that we have written for Wikipedia, but alas, it is not quite launched. Wikipedia has many requirements for privacy, so it must host the script it has written on its own server. And when that hosting has been completed, any user using Wikipedia can log on to their free Wikipedia account, and then they could download this script. And the script will work as you see here on the EasyBib site. They'll see an article, and they'll be able to search for full text and see what their library can offer them. Here I've summarized it on this next screen for you. And the API does not work as validation necessarily, which means that a library may have its own steps in place to make sure that only affiliated users and qualified users can get to content that is behind the paywall. So a user, when she clicks through to a link, could, depending on their library, encounter a logon screen and need to log on again before they see the full text content. That is somewhat dependent on how the library operates. But what the API will do is identify the institution, identify the content, and say that it is available, and let the library try and get immediate access to it. And then, as Jake was describing, the KB, the knowledge base, is also collecting information about open access, and it also has libraries, URL resolvers, if libraries have registered all that information in their registry file, which is something else that OCLC hosts and provides for free to all libraries. You know what a Wikipedia article looks like. Down there at the bottom, you see all these opportunities for further reading and for the bibliographies. It was interesting to me to see Lily acknowledge that users aren't necessarily using these bibliographies effectively or even know how to use them, but it certainly seems like an opportunity for better bibliographic instruction, certainly at the undergraduate library level, and using Wikipedia as an example and being able to click through to full text that the library is hosting there would be a pretty awesome experience, seems to me. So how can you get involved in this part of the project and participate in this kind of visibility? There are instructions. You recall that this presentation will be available for you to look at later once the recording is completed. You'll all hear about it. But you can see that there's a website listed down there, a URL, that you can use to start learning about how to participate with OCLC's knowledge base. You need to register your collection. You need to work with certain partners that will allow you to export the knowledge base you may already be using and upload it to OCLC's knowledge base. And then we have agreements, as I mentioned, with certain publishers where they are populating the knowledge base, and with your permission, they will tell OCLC about your collections. And as I mentioned, Elsevier is the latest one that we've signed, UC, EBL, and eBrary. We are also working with my colleague, Susanna Kemperman, who works in publisher relations. She and her team are working tirelessly to bring us even more of these partnerships and opportunities to make the whole process seamless and automated. The most important first step is to activate your knowledge base. Libraries who are members of OCLC, who are cataloging members, have this opportunity. If you have any questions, you can write publishing@oclc.org to understand which partnerships might apply to you and figure out how to get involved. Some of the partnerships that we have that are already hosting these links, I showed you a shot of EasyBib. bibme.org Citation Machine are two other user-facing citation management sites that are very popular with students. They have these links in place. Sciencescape has just written me last week to say that their links are finally up. Citavi.com is coming to the U.S. It's very popular in Europe, and they have been hosting our links. And, of course, Wikipedia, any day now. Stay tuned. We'll have that downloadable script available, and then we're hoping to really get the word out. And by the way, for any of you attending ALA Midwinter, we are planning, Jake and I don't know yet, I'm hoping to lure Marilee out there, but we'll see who the final group is. But at least Jake and I will be there to talk to you about this project. And I don't know yet if it'll be a program room or an OCLC suite room, but stay tuned for more information about that. Here's a final page with our information again, who we are. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we are now open for questions.
Yes, indeed. So we have a couple of questions that were posted in the chat window, and I'd encourage you all, if you do have questions, to go ahead and type them in there. We have plenty of time, and I think we can get to a bunch of them. So the first question, which I think is probably for our colleagues at Rutgers, have you received any criticism from faculty for teaching undergraduates how to use Wikipedia as a research tool? If you guys want to field that.
Yeah, sure. So we haven't received any criticism about it. I think that we are looking to do this faculty survey probably in the beginning of spring, and use the survey, use the information we gather to really make an argument for faculty and instructors that Wikipedia does have a lot of value as a teaching tool, and because we suspect that there's a lot of just uncertainty in terms of in terms of faculty and instructors about how information actually appears on Wikipedia. Like, we're not really sure that they understand the rules and the fact that it's a pretty stringent process of it. And also, we find that there's a lot we can teach undergraduates about the process of scholarship itself by using Wikipedia. So we look forward to maybe getting that comment, but also having a very good, strong argument.
Kenning, I shouldn't leave you out of this either. You've also had a experience with visiting scholars and engaging on campus about Wikipedia. Have you encountered any resistance on the part of faculty? I think you're muted.
Sorry, forgetting that part. I haven't worked with faculty directly on this issue, but I mean I can talk a little bit about library faculty and the library culture in general. I think this is it's just a bit of a slow change and questioning values that librarians hold. I mean, we have, just as we have discouraged people from using Wikipedia, previously we were, busily discouraging people from using Google at all in our instruction sessions and so forth. I think that's universally true across libraries. So I would just say that it's a slow cultural change.
So educating ourselves is a good first step.
Yes.
Good thing to remember. There was also a question on, so there was a question for you, Kenning. Have you noticed a change in your library website's traffic or a change in the use of library resources as a result of the changements or improvements in the library's semantic web presence?
Yes, and the answer is yes. I should have those numbers in front of me. Unfortunately, I don't at the moment. But yes, we have seen an increase in traffic. Some of these things, some of these, some of these changes take a long time to track. It's sort of like trying to track the impact of citation of institutional repositories and measuring by citations. I mean, some of this works over years.
Yeah. I wanted to follow up and note that you said that some institutions are probably not well represented, at least on Wikipedia. And following the ALA presentation, I did a little kind of back of napkin calculation looking at ARL institutions as a subset, and probably fewer than a quarter of them are represented in Wikipedia. So Montana State University was definitely not an isolated case. So looking at ways within the Wikipedia Library project, perhaps where we are able to put some attention and focus on making library resources more available. I want to bring Jake as an active Wikipedian into this conversation. There's questions about is it against Wikipedia rules to add images and sources from your own library on Wikipedia to encourage linking back to your site? I know, Kenning, you've had some experience with this as well, but since Jake is quite an active Wikipedian, it's good to get his perspective on this. And Jake, you could unmute. There we go.
Sure. Well, I'm going to start with just one quick comment that from the educational perspective, from the pedagogical perspective, it's not necessary to be instructing students that they should be using Wikipedia. That's not the argument that we're making. It is absolutely necessary that every student understand what Wikipedia is, how the content is constructed, in what ways it is or is not reliable, and how to evaluate the quality of a Wikipedia article, because they do differ, and there are differences between Wikipedia's knowledge production process and Encyclopedia Britannica's. And it's deeply important that despite the differences, they, in scientific studies, have similar levels of accuracy and errors. I pasted in the chat, and maybe we can make that more visible, an assignment that the Wikimedia Foundation Education Program has created, where a teacher can walk students or a librarian can walk students through a specific assignment on how to evaluate the quality of a Wikipedia article. And this is not making a choice about Wikipedia's role in research. It's making a point, a fundamental point about what it means to have some information literacy. in the digital age, and you can't say that you're digitally literate unless you understand what Wikipedia is, how it works, and how to evaluate the quality of what you're reading. Shifting gears to the conflict of interest question. There's a broad spectrum of conflict of interest. We have hobbyists who are big fans of sports teams. They might be editing an article. We have public relations professionals from British Petroleum who are editing their articles. And libraries and academic staff are on that spectrum, but they are treated or should be treated as subject matter experts, not spammers and not marketing flack. And there are a couple ways to ensure that when you engage with Wikipedia, that you are treated as an expert as opposed to a spammer. And I use that word not to imply that you should ever be grouped in that category, but Wikipedia is constantly being assaulted by promotion and vandalism and spam. And so there are a couple things you can do to make your experience better. The first is when you get to Wikipedia, don't edit anonymously. There's a simple 30-second process to register an account. It's completely free. You don't have to share any information. Once you create an account, the next thing that you should do is go to your user page. It's like your profile, and you should introduce yourself. And you should say, this is who I am, this is who I work for, this is what I'm here to do. That helps other editors who are examining and evaluating your contributions to know that you have expertise in the subject, you're trying to follow the best practices, you're willing to learn, you want to be corrected if you do something wrong, and that you're not this anonymous face who's just adding links. Another thing to think about is the difference between sharing your content and writing about yourself. So when you're linking to resources within your collections, that's often appropriate. But you want to be more careful when you're writing the article about your own institution, department, or library. It's not impossible to do it yourself, but you generally want to follow the best practice of creating a draft. And there is a sandbox that every registered Wikipedia editor can draft in. And then you most likely want to ask another editor to take a look at your content before making it live. And that's because bias is a challenge for anyone, even a subject matter expert. When you're writing about your own institution, it makes sense to write a good, neutral, well-sourced draft, and then to run it by someone who's not involved. Now, as for linking to your content, the best way to link to your content is actually to integrate your content into an article, to use your resources to develop the content of an article and then link to a reference. It's less helpful to put a link in the external link section at the bottom of an article, because you can imagine what would happen if every library put a link to their search portal to say, we have references on this. That's less helpful. And there's a middle case there for specific collections. If you have one of the top tier collections on a particular subject matter, then that is appropriate. And rather than linking to just your website in general, you would want to link to either the portal page for that collection or possibly the finding aid or the subject guide for that collection when your library has specific outstanding content in that area. These are some of the general considerations, but the most important thing is create an account, introduce yourself, and be willing to engage with other Wikipedia editors and to get over sometimes that first pushback where you're told you did something wrong. That's really the beginning of a relationship. And if you just stay patient and engage with Wikipedia editors, they will try and help guide you to a place where your expertise can be revealed and can benefit the encyclopedia.
There was also a question that you answered in the chat, and I just wanted to call people's attention to that. There are faculty members who use Wikipedia to teach undergraduate students how to evaluate information. And Jake pointed out the resources on evaluating Wikipedia quality as one aspect of that. I will add that Wikipedia, there is a Wikimedia Education Foundation that has recently started up that's based here in San Francisco, and that they are very, very busy looking at how Wikipedia can be, and other Wikimedia sister projects can be integrated into the classroom at all levels. Again, looking at the question of not only improving the encyclopedia, but also understanding. A big part of that is understanding information quality. Again, an area where I think very many Wikipedians are quite aligned with librarians in some very, to some surprising ways. To me, no longer surprising.
Kristen had a question.
Yes. So there was also a question about, so Jake, do you want to say something about image licensing? There's questions about image licensing. And yes, I will acknowledge that it is difficult to find in one place kind of best practices on Wikipedia for librarians. It's a great idea to add that to the GlamWiki portal. I'm part of a group that works on that portal, so we can work on that. I'll paste a link to the GlamWiki portal for those who haven't found it. But Jake, could you say something about image licensing? I think you might be more knowledgeable about that than I am.
Sure. So Wikipedia is under a CC BY SA license. So it's Creative Commons with attribution and share-alike terms. And any content which is CC BY SA or more free, like CC 0 or CC BY, can be uploaded to Wikipedia. So the first step is figuring out which of your content is compatible. If we're talking about uploading text, that's license compatible. We have a site called Wikisource where that can be done. And if you're talking about images, those copyright compatible kinds of content go on our website, commons.wikimedia.org, which is where we store over 20 million freely licensed images. So once you've identified CC BY SA compatible content, the next thing you can do is look to uploading it. And we do have, I'd be happy to help walk people or point people to tools that allow us to do that at scale. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going around to every article you can and replacing a perfectly suitable image with content that you just uploaded. The best place for your content on Wikipedia is specifically on the articles where you have the definitive kind of document or illustration, or articles where there is a gap, where there's an image missing, and you have some content that's relevant. That is where your images should go.
So I'll just add that it can be confusing for people in the United States because we have fair use in the United States. The Wikimedia Commons has no such concept. Wikimedia Commons is used globally, so things that get uploaded to Wikimedia Commons either need to be in the public domain or need to be designated as CC0 or CC BY. So that's kind of, I think with fair use we have quite a bit of leniency for being able to upload things to our own websites. Tim, of course, asks, hi Tim, what about emerging platforms like Wikidata? Any suggestions for how librarians can engage with it? So I'll just note that when we had our Wikipedian in residence, Max Klein, we did do quite a bit of work integrating name authorities into Wikidata. Wikidata, for those of you who don't know about it, is a relatively new project. It's a place to park identifiers and information, basically metadata and facts about entities that are related to Wikipedia. I think that this is actually a natural home for librarians, and that with our expertise in dealing with metadata, and particularly with library identifiers becoming more and more prevalent in the library world due to the emergence of semantic identifiers and the push towards things, not strings. I think that Wikidata will probably play an important role for the library community. We're just about out of time here, so I want to take just a couple moments and note some upcoming presentations that will hopefully be of interest to you all. OCLC Research will be hosting a webinar in early December, the second week of December, and I don't have the date quite in my head, but you can look for an announcement on it. And it will be a round robin from a number of institutions, mostly archivists, who have been working with Wikipedia to integrate their resources into Wikipedia, and they'll be talking from a variety of perspectives. So this will be kind of the boots on the ground session for those of you who are interested in integrating your own resources into Wikipedia and looking for some tips and tricks on how to be successful, and actually how you can play an important role in contributing to the world's largest encyclopedia. The second is that for those of you who will be attending the Charleston conference, there will be a session, a quite lively session that will be related to this, but also somewhat different with some different voices on the Wikipedia Library. There will be a speaker from Oxford University Press, and also our colleague Susanna Kemperman from OCLC, who will be talking about. So you'll get some more kind of publisher voices in that presentation, and moderated by Chris Ferguson, who I see was able to attend today's presentation. So that ought to be great. That'll be on November 6th, so look out for announcements about that. And I think that brings us to the conclusion of our